So Hot Takes, the hottest sports betting podcast on the planet.
I'm Sean.
I'm Sam.
And I'm Luke. And we have a special guest today.
I'm Brady.
This is Not So Hot
Yay.
Takes.
We got a
Welcome, Brady.
guest. Welcome in,
sir.
everybody. First 2025 episode, I believe, or second
It
one?
is.
First 2025 episode. First halfway nationwide episode, as you can tell. We are all different places, different time zones. We're making it big time, fellas. How we feel?
Different
How we
places,
feeling?
Different faces.
How's everyone feeling?
Happy New Year. Happy Chinese New Year. And anything else you celebrate.
Happy Kwanzaa. Is that now?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What do the
Hanukkah.
Catholics do for Advent calendar?
That's
That's
no,
before. That's before
yeah.
Christmas.
Do they pull out
Yep.
little liquor sets after each like a day?
No, they do something.
Something like
There,
that.
it's like a 25-day calendar. There's usually like a piece of chocolate
Is it
behind
Advent?
each
I think
day.
that's Advent.
Isn't
Don't they have,
Advent
like,
12
regular
days?
Advent calendars?
No. I think
Or I'm thinking of the 12 days of Christmas.
no. Stop.
Where's it
Advent
passing?
is the season of Easter. Lent is the 4 weeks before Christmas. They light two
it's
purple
not.
candles, one pink.
No, it's not. You've got it
Okay.
backwards.
For
brother.
Easter.
Backwards. Advent. The 4 weeks of Advent.
No.
Oh my God, Sam's gonna burst into flames.
I'm
Sam
cooked.
says because he's Catholic, they do Christmas on Christmas Eve.
No, it's because he's Italian.
Italian.
I've never met a blonde Italian in my life.
That it's not really blonde. It's kind of dark.
It used to be blonde.
All right. It used to be white. All right. Come on. What are we here to talk about? What are we here to talk about?
This is a college
We can talk
football
about-
show.
All
This is
right.
a college football show. So yeah, we're deep in the playoff. Got semifinals coming up. It's getting close to the end of the year. It's been a long year. I know we talked about how quick the year was going, but with how long this playoff is, it sure is dragging on in a good way, obviously. But yeah, we're enjoying it. But basically, this week we're just going to run through, give our thoughts on the games from the last round, and then give our thoughts on the two upcoming games, and get you guys on your way. It shouldn't be too long of an episode this week. We're going to get right to it. Anyone have anything to say before we get going?
Kirby Smart is a terrorist.
Okay. Well,
Yes.
considering he played in New Orleans and he was in the city,
Yeah, that's probably a bad thing
it's
to
an
say right now.
He might have done it. He might have done it. He might have done it. He might have gotten away with it. It might have been him.
It
might have been him.
All right, we're gonna move on.
All
We're
right.
gonna
Just saying.
We're fine. We're
Where
wrong
was
with
Kirby
it.
Smart that night? That's all I'm saying.
Probably
That's all I'm
Probably-
saying.
At the show.
probably had an escort.
Probably.
All right,
Yeah.
well, that's not even the first game we're gonna talk. That's literally the last game. So you're all over the place, man. Pull yourself together.
Happens, man.
Talking about Len is before Christmas. Talking about Kirby Smart.
Come on. We're talking
Did
college football. We're
unspeakable
not talking.
things. All right. Well, the first game was an important one to some being myself, and to Sam. Penn State took on Boise State. I had people telling me Boise State could hang with the big dogs all year. No, they can't. Penn State played their C+ game, beat them 31-14. They didn't look. They had an A+ first quarter. I'll give them that. And then they fumbled that read option, and it was like they were doing everything in their power to keep Boise State in that
Jinx
game.
of the century by myself. Jinx of the century by
Oh, yeah,
myself. in that game.
surprise. That
was
never
so
happens,
bad.
dude. That never
That was-
happens.
Never
But-
happens.
Yeah, 31-14. I mean, they handled him. Genty, there were spurts, but Penn State had 8 in the box on every single play. Let's be honest. Like the game plan, this isn't the NFL. Boise State wasn't littered with 5-star recruits everywhere, or like the superstars that other teams have. So you can load up the box when you're a Power 5 team, especially when you're a top 5 team. And you have athletes on the outside that can keep up with their group of 5 wide receivers. They handled them. I mean, Boise, they put up a fight. I'm not going to act like they steamrolled them, but 31-14, it was a little bit close just because of some dumb turnovers. And honestly, my biggest gripe was the play calling, honestly. I think they were getting way too cute. I mean, there were times this year where I thought they were getting too cute, but this was like this took the cake for me because it was a team that you could out-roster, out-manhandle, out-strength, out-run, and they just refused to run stretch to the right every single play, even though I think they averaged probably like 15 yards of carry on stretch to the right. That first quarter, I think they ran it for a whole drive and scored a touchdown. I didn't think it was rocket science. I don't know if you guys have any other thoughts on that, but that's how I came away from the game.
No, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, Penn State played their C-plus game and still walked away victorious, up by 17 points. I mean, Singleton, you ran him to the left. Katron Allen, you ran him to the right, and it was just you couldn't stop them. Their offensive line actually looked good, despite being Penn State's offensive line. Defense showed up, though. They gave Ashton Jeanty, 36 carries, and he still barely hit 100 yards.
Here, I'll grab the stats. He had 30 for 104, yeah.
Yeah. So, what do you tell? What do you say? Did Penn State just shut him down, or was he actually that dominant? I guess we'll never know. But they took care of business.
Relax. We're not gonna take anything away from Jeanty now. Come on.
No,
We were all
no.
big Jeanty fans the entire year.
No, I know. I'm a huge
Penn
Jeanty
State.
fan. I'm just saying that you play one of the top teams, and that's what happens. I think they
He went crazy against Oregon.
I understand that, but I think they fed him too much. After that first half, you kind of got to know it's not working. He had, 47 yards in the first half, and the reason he got to 103 is because they kind of fed him that last drive. They gave him 20 yards of handoffs. They handed the ball off to him twice in a row, almost every drive. But Penn State took care of business. I would like to see them play a little bit better. Like Sean said, C-plus game. Make me nervous.
Yeah, I mean, you guys kind of covered it. I was the only one who took a bet in this game, took Penn State minus 10.5. It was a sweat for a little bit there. There seemed like there was a lot of setup parts where it was like this 10.5 is going to finish at 10 or it's going to finish at whatever. And I was sweating there for a little bit. That first half was not a great way to end that half, but no complaints. You guys covered all of it.
All right. Well, on that note, Brady, any comments?
I didn't have anything in this game, but I will say it's definitely PSU. I think we can all agree has had the easiest route so far with SMU and Boise State. So I guess a lot to be determined here tomorrow, right?
Yeah,
They play tomorrow, yeah. So we'll see.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into it, obviously. But we can jump in. So that was New Year's Eve. We can jump into New Year's Day. I mean, you want to talk about easy routes. I think everyone's acknowledged it was Penn State, and there was one other team that we thought had the easy route. Turns out they had the toughest game of the second round. Texas, Arizona State. That game was where was that game? Someone remind me. Was that Atlanta?
It was in Atlanta.
Yeah, okay. So in Atlanta, Texas started to pull away at the start. I thought it was cooked. I think most people thought it was cooked. And then Scadaboo started doing literally anything in his power. I mean, he threw a touchdown on probably the dumbest play call I've ever seen. The luckiest pass I've ever. That pass is legitimately underthrown by probably 20 yards.
Russell
it's
Wilson
not even
moonball special.
He threw a worse moonball than Russell Wilson, and he's having better
Yeah.
results than Russell Wilson right now. We'll get into that in the NFL episode, but we can save that for another day. But so they started pulling back, tied it up, went to overtime, scored first in overtime, had 4th and 13 for Texas in overtime, and then they run all-out blitz and they leave their corners on an island against these talented Texas receivers. It was never going to work. But I thoroughly entertaining. Obviously, game of the weekend, game of the round. Probably it's definitely game of the playoffs so far.
One of the game of the years, probably.
Yeah, probably top 5 game of the year, especially considering the difference in talent and the difference in expectations. What was the line in this game? 13.5, I think it was.
13.5.
13.5, yeah.
Yeah, and some people might have taken it live. Who knows? Maybe took Texas live. I don't know anyone that would have done that. But
No idea.
yeah. Refreshing my memory. Yeah, obviously. I had the under, and it would have hit, but then the game went to overtime because Texas
Auburn
is.
got to kick a field goal.
Yeah, never rely on Auburn. I'll tell you that much. But yeah, I had the under.
I put that tweet. I put a tweet out, and I said some joke about like typical Auburn, and my mom responded to my tweet and said, "Typical Auburn what?" And I was.
Oh yeah,
Shout out
but
Ginger Weaver. I know she listens to the pod, but
Love Ginger.
Shout out.
Mom, I was
Shout
talking
out.
about Bert Auburn, the kicker for Texas, not the Auburn Tigers, but they both choke all the time.
Yeah, he was making a joke about the Auburn Tigers, so you can lay into him. Don't worry.
Yep.
But
yeah.
yeah, I had the under. What do you got, Sam? Tell me a little bit about how you felt about this game.
I felt great. I mean, I had ASU plus 13.5. I think Weaver had taken it as well. I thought it was cooked right at the first quarter. I thought it was over. So I actually I had gotten, I think, Texas at minus 9.5. Ended up just taking a shit, but I only sprinkled that one, so we still walked away happy. But like we said, 24-8, 6:53 on the clock. Scadaboo throws a Russell Wilson moon ball, underthrows him. Both defenders overrun the route. The receiver comes back and then runs a circle around. Like, make it make sense. I saw that ball go up and I was like, oh, free money. And then somehow it landed in his hands. Somehow they get both 2-point conversions. I mean, Scadaboo, hats off to him, man. Like he plays with like he's got a chip on the shoulder. I kind of thought he was a little bit of a D-bag until, I heard him talk, and I actually really like the guy. Congratulations to Scadaboo for getting the MVP as well. First time in 43 years a losing team in that bowl game has gotten MVP. Really impressive. We know Quinn Ewers didn't really deserve it. But Quinn showed little signs of hope, in that OT, especially like Sean said, 4th and 13. You get that ball. That's not an easy pass to make. I mean, he got it over a defender and then on the inside shoulder going right up the middle. Great pass. I mean, that's the Quinn Ewers everybody expected to play all year. Unfortunately, they didn't get that. But ASU, I mean, hats off to them. They put Big 12 on the map. We all said these, all these bye teams that got byes, except for Georgia, of course, they were just going to get cooked. And, hats off to ASU, bringing it back, going to OT.
I had ASU plus 13.5 and the under. We already went over the under, how that would have hit. But I know we're talking about Scadaboo a lot, but hats off to Sam Levitt, man. That dude is an athlete. That dude performed all game, was just a game. Like, 4th and long, he scrambled, find a way to get out of there, get that first down. I mean, he's a redshirt freshman. So he's a 20-year-old kid pretty much out there with some grown men just absolutely just dicing him up. And, he's going to be a star if he decides to stay at ASU. I know he re-signed a deal to stay at ASU next year, which, we don't need to get into all the portal and NIL situation. We've already dug deep into that. But, hats off to Sam Levitt. Great game from him. Overall, I think that if Texas moved away to what was working in that first half, they stopped blitzing. Sam Levitt was making plays, but if they just kept bringing the house, I don't really think that this game. I know it's kind of a hard ask to ask your defense to literally blitz every single play. That's not really attainable, but that's what was working for the first half. Get Sam Levitt out of the pocket, make his wide receivers make plays and get open, and that's what worked for them on that last play of the game, and that's kind of what worked in OT. ASU kind of just looked a little bit overwhelmed in that overtime. So, but either way, great game, great watch. The classic. That'll be a classic forever. Brady, did you have anything in this game?
I actually did. I had ASU plus 13.5. I just feel like with Texas
Sharp.
here, aside from them dismantling Oklahoma and Florida, they've kind of been in a bunch of dogfights with Arkansas and Vandy, and I figured this would be pretty much the same thing. Didn't look like that at first, but obviously towards the end, obviously in overtime, we got very close, and obviously the 13.5 hit for me. I guess hit for most of us, right?
Yeah,
Aside
most
from-
of us.
Start money.
Didn't take it.
Sounds like that's a threesome. That's a threesome. Could have been a foursome.
Low-key.
Right there.
I wish I
Low
knew.
key, Sean kind of saved us, though, because if he took that,
Yeah, you're
Texas
welcome.
would have just walked away. They would have picked
You're
that
welcome.
ball, the moon ball.
They would have won like 52-10, and they would have
Yeah.
the under wouldn't hit anyway. It would have been a disaster. So you're welcome to everyone involved. If you tailed, you're welcome. Brady, you're welcome, even though you didn't even say it on the pod. Great game there. I do want to give a shout out to what's his name, Matthew Golden, I think his name is. I know it's Golden. I forget if it's Matthew, but that route he had on that 4th and 13, dear God, fried the living hell out of that corner. Like, Ewers made a great throw. Don't get me wrong, but he made it a lot easier by like nearly putting the dude in the dirt. But
Right.
we can move on to the next. The next game. Moment of silence. Can we have a moment of silence for the Oregon Ducks? Yikes! Yeah. So if you missed that game, Ohio State, they got their revenge, and then some. They beat Oregon 41-21. Let me tell you, that doesn't tell the story. What was the score at halftime? I think it was 31-0 at halftime, and then they came out.
34-0.
No, they didn't. They come out.
No,
I think they came.
scored a
Oh, they
touchdown
scored. You're
before
right.
half.
It was 34-8, but it was 34-0 at one point.
Yeah.
So it was. I mean, how much can you even say about this game, man? Like you could talk about Jeremiah Smith for hours and hours and hours. I don't even know how much I want to talk about this game. I think I'd rather just pose this question to you guys. Jeremiah Smith comes into the draft this year. Does he go 1-1? Probably, right? He has to.
I don't believe we've seen enough on him. To be
No.
honest, he's a freshman. He had the Oregon game. He really exploded. He's been a solid receiver all year. But I mean, he was absent in the Michigan game. He was absent in the Penn State game. Whether you want to blame that on Will Howard or not, he was absent. He wasn't open. Will Howard in the Penn State game left the pocket many times and had no receivers open. Jeremiah Smith, I think he's an incredible talent. Right, he's NFL ready. I wouldn't call him 1-1 right now. I just don't think we've seen enough from him.
You wouldn't take the 18-year-old with the most potential you've ever seen ever, and a guy who has showed up on the big stage and beat the number one team in the country basically by himself. You're not taking that guy 1-1. I mean, this isn't a loaded class. Let's be honest. This is not a loaded class in the slightest.
I'm still taking Travis over Smith.
I feel like he's the only argument there. It's like him or Carter, but like Carter is like edge rusher versus wide receiver. It's just basically it'd be like a fit thing almost. And oh my gosh, who has the first overall pick? The Tennessee Titans, and we have a Titans.
We do.
Brady. Jeremiah Smith is in this class. Are you taking him 1-1 or who are you taking 1-1?
I wouldn't take him 1-1. I think he's the best receiver in this class.
Mm-hmm.
Aside from Travis Hunter, because he plays both sides. I think he would probably be a top 5-10 pick. If I'm the Titans, I'm either taking Shedeur Sanders or signing a veteran bridge guy and selecting Hunter. I feel like those are only two routes there. Tennessee, they need a star. Aside from Henry and A.J. Brown for the few seasons they had him, they haven't really had a star since probably the early 2010s with CJ2K, I feel like. So I think one of those two, you really got to get a star in there.
Delaney Walker? Delaney Walker was a star.
Man.
He was a star.
Not like
A.J. Brown?
Yeah. He said that. He mentioned him.
Okay, my bad.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was locked in on.
Walker was a very serviceable type.
Not Bobby Trees? Robert Woods?
Bobby Trees. What about Nick Westbrook-Akine, man? Like, how many touchdowns he gonna score?
They need to give him the world this offseason.
But yeah,
he had the craziest stat ever. 40% of his catches were touchdowns.
Yeah, it's nuts.
I saw he scored like 8 weeks in a row or something like that. I saw some.
It was like 8 of 9.
Yeah, and it was something like
I broke his curse because he was 20 week 4, didn't catch one ball all season. I bet him to score a touchdown plus 2,600 hit. He was the first touchdown in the game, and that was his run of games he went on.
I saw something. It was like if you rolled over his touchdown score, it was like crazy amount of money.
That was his first target, first reception, everything was. And it just kept going.
That's nuts.
Yeah, but we can talk about Nick Westbrook-Akine for hours. We gotta get back a little bit towards college football. I mean, they outgained Ohio State. Going back to that game, they outgained them 500 to 276. I think Will Howard had like 380, or he had a lot of passing yards at halftime. He was on pace. They were on pace for like 800 yards at one point, if not more. It was just an utter throttling. Let's be honest. Dylan Gabriel would roll out, or he'd try to step up in the pocket and he'd get sacked by Tyleik Williams, or if he rolled out to the side. Could Caleb Downs have just batted down any more passes when Dylan Gabriel came out of the pocket? It seemed like every single time he'd roll out to his left and he'd try to hit a guy on the sideline, and Caleb Downs is there to bat it away. It was like watching the same drive over and over.
If he tried to throw one down the middle, Jack Sawyer would just stick his arms up.
Yeah, it was honestly, it was like something Ohio State this season, it's like something I've never seen before. Michigan is a loss I've never seen before. Oregon is a win I've never seen before. It was just utter domination by a team that had already lost to that team that was the lower seed. And obviously it's the first year we've had a playoff like this, and they just come in and absolutely stomp them. I mean, like, congratulations, you expanded the playoff. Now you let the best team you let the best team in the country into the playoff, even though they didn't deserve it, and now they're going to make everybody pay. That's kind of what it seems like is happening. I don't know if you guys have any other thoughts.
Sean, I think it's easy for us who were Ohio State bettors, spoiler, but I want to hear from Sam's perspective, because we didn't have him on the pod last week about why he chose to bet the plus 2.5.
I just want to say before he talks, I just want to reiterate. I wish we could throw in the audio clip of. It's like I think I was like, oh, I took -2.5, and Luke was like, oh, I'm really glad to hear that I have -2.5, and then we went to check. It's like Sam has Oregon plus 1.5, and I think both our arms went straight up in the air.
Yeah. All right. Well, we can stop dick eating. Look, Oregon, simple. They didn't show up, and it goes back to the argument: rest versus rust. Every single rest team got bounced from the playoffs. Whether you want to say, okay, Arizona State and Boise State shouldn't have really belonged there, fine. But you got a Georgia team, and we'll talk about that later. I don't want to spoil. We got Georgia and we got Oregon, the best team in the nation. I mean, they were sitting for how many days? 20 days? It was like 19 or 20 days. They didn't play any football. Ohio State got a cream puff to warm up with Tennessee. They utterly dominated them. And you can say that about Penn State too. I know that we got an easy schedule. I mean, we played SMU, who probably didn't belong in that playoff. It was a warm up game. We pretty much had 2 warm up games at this point now. I don't know if that's going to be good for us or bad for us going into. Well, we'll talk about it. Notre Dame, Oregon just didn't come out to play, and honestly, I thought maybe I took the rest side. I took the rest side, said these guys are going to be dialed. They could just think about Ohio State for 20 days. And I mean, maybe they thought too hard. They look slow. I remember watching that Penn State game in the Big Ten Championship, and I was like, oh my God, like Oregon looks faster. It's not even like they look like good. They look fast. Like they look like they're playing on ×2 speed, and we were playing at normal speed. It was incredible. It didn't seem that way against Ohio State. They get nothing going. Their guys weren't flying all over the field, nothing. I mean, Will Howard had guys in open space, I don't know. I don't know if Oregon actually had a top-rated defense. I know Penn State, Drew Aller looked like the second coming of Jesus against them, for God's sakes. And then Will Howard, who we've seen kind of struggle throwing the ball against Penn State, against Michigan. I know Michigan's a bigger spot, but he's just throwing all over them, left and right. DBs were getting burnt. I did not see it coming. I thought Oregon would keep it close at least. I believed Ohio State would probably win the game, but I thought it'd be a way closer game. I thought it'd be the same as last time, just flip-flopped. But I was wrong. I mean, Ohio State just came out to play, and they kicked ass. They put belt to ass, in Luke Weaver's words. Belt to ass.
Luke, anything?
Nope. I think Ohio State
Kind of covered it all.
Yeah. I mean, I got some theories going into next week or going into this coming game that we can talk about. Brady, did you pick anything in this game?
I'll keep it short, but Sam, I went down with you. I had Oregon plus 2.5 as well. It was very fortunate for me because I got off of work around end of the first half, and saw we were down 31-0. So
didn't have to tune in.
Didn't miss much, that's for sure.
My bad, Brady.
Well, on that note, Sam, I hate to do this, but I'm going to be honest with you. I completely disagree with what you were talking about. I don't think Oregon didn't show up. I think Ohio State's just the most motivated team in the country right now, and I think they're a better team than Oregon, and I think that they were flying all over the field. I don't think it has anything to do with what Oregon was doing. I think that there's just less motivation there. Let's be honest. They were a team that just won the Big Ten. They had a little bit of rest. There's no big motivation there. They're playing a team that they already beat versus a team that is still coming off their worst loss of the season, just played their best football game against Tennessee, who had one of the best defenses in the entire country, and they completely changed their game plan. They were finally relying on both sides of the run and the pass instead of just trying to ram it down your throat and hope for the best and then have Will Howard save them on 3rd and long. I think that they changed their game plan to be better. I think that they were motivated to beat a team that they already lost to, and that they were motivated because they were playing their best ball right now. So I don't think it's that Oregon didn't show up. I mean, I'm sure there's some aspect of it, but I think that it's more so just the fact that like Ohio State's kind of playing like a buzzsaw right now. And we'll get into how that looks for the future. Maybe this is the spot where they hit that wall because they redeem that loss, and it's like harder to keep that going for through multiple, because everyone knows like motivation. You can't be motivated off the same thing for forever because you lose some of it. Like maybe it's a long conversation. I'm sure there's some scientific theories about it.
I mean,
but
yeah.
we can get into it.
Look, you make really good points. Everything's better in hindsight. But if you tell me Oregon gets to play that game against Tennessee before Ohio State gets a warm up and Ohio State sits on their ass for 3 weeks, probably an entire different story. I'm just saying, I think the rest over rust is really a huge conversation here.
Well, we can agree to disagree. I mean, I'm not saying you're completely wrong. Like I said, I agree that I'm sure there's some sort of aspect to it, but
look at ASU. They were asleep for 3 quarters. Then they figured it out. Right? Well, Boise State, I mean, they came out of the gate hot, but
you know my argument there. Those teams don't deserve to be playing for a national championship. Like that's my argument. But that's a completely different conversation that we've touched on in the past, and I don't want every college football episode to be like, oh, the playoff is so bad.
I think
You
the
know.
playoffs fine. There's a little bit of restructuring, but I mean, real quick, Chip
I just said
Patterson.
I don't want to do this. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Real quick, Chip Patterson is an idiot, bro. I really liked him. I used to listen to him, but he just came out and he sounded stupid. He said that the 4 teams in this playoff, maybe except for Ohio State, don't deserve to be winning a national title. Who does though? Georgia certainly didn't earn it. Okay, Oregon, like you're saying, Hawk, they came out, they got their ass kicked, they won the Big Ten, but they got their ass kicked. They don't deserve it. Who deserves it then? That's what I'm asking Chip Patterson. Who deserves it? Alabama? Are you giving Alabama a shot in there? Are you giving Miami a shot in there? Are you giving Ole Miss a shot in there? Do you think Indiana had a chance? Like, if these 4 teams that are in here grinded through their games don't deserve it, who does? That's my question. Like, who does?
Yeah, I mean, I think the only argument there, the only way I can understand what he's saying, and we talked about this a little bit off the podcast, me and you, Sam. But I think the only way that his argument there makes sense is that that he's saying the playoff is too big because we're putting teams that don't deserve a chance to play for the national championship in the playoff. And I understand, I understand that obviously because I've talked about it on the podcast before. But just to word it in the way that it just makes it seem like these teams didn't earn it and that's it. It doesn't really make any sense, to be honest. I don't know. Luke, Brady, do you guys have anything to say about that?
I like the playoff. I think that these dates suck.
I
Like,
like the playoff.
it feels like the Penn State Boise State game was like a month ago.
It does.
I know it was only they got 8 days, which I guess is fine. Like you give everybody a week in between, but like I feel like we've been watching playoff football for 3 months at this point.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just because it feels like every single game has mattered for like the past 3 months. Like it feels like from the first week, every single game is like playoff implications, whatever else. But I mean, I'm not going to touch. I've already talked about my piece. Do you have any? We haven't heard Brady's thoughts on the playoff. Do you seem to enjoy the playoff, or do you have any gripes with it?
I wonder if he's going to like it.
I
Maybe
actually
expanded
do
by
like
one
it.
team.
I do like it. I do think that the bottom feeder teams that get in should be revisited. I'm not saying that Alabama should have got in, but I will say, say if Bama, South Carolina, or Miami's at Penn State, I think that game's a lot closer. I'm not saying I'm an Alabama fan. They wouldn't have beat Penn State. They would no shot. They would have won or would have won. If they wouldn't have lost, would they lose by?
It was 38-3 or something.
38-10.
38-10.
Miller probably would have thrown 2 pick sixes, but they probably would have lost by like 10 points though. But like stuff like that's kind of stuff that gets me annoyed. But college football did it for the views and the money, and they're getting that, so they're going to keep rolling with it.
Yeah, it's unfortunate to say that they're like, you want to blame them, but then you see like, oh, ratings are the highest ever, and it's like I hate talking about TV ratings because it's such a stupid conversation, and I know I'm the one that just brought them up, so I am.
Every game has like the most commercials ever.
Yeah, exactly.
They're so
exactly.
long.
TV timeouts are 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But we've talked about outside influences and our gripes with this for a little too long. We'll get on to the last game. Obviously, backed up for the unfortunate events that happened in New Orleans. So prayers up to everyone involved. I know we're a little late, but we are recording about a week later. So, prayers up for everyone involved. Obviously, some of us had family that were really close by. Thankfully, no one was injured. So we prayers for all the families involved. It's a terrible story. Obviously, nothing. Obviously, we cracked a little jokes at the start. We're a little lighthearted, but obviously
That's how we deal with grief around here. That's how we deal with grief.
we know it's very serious, and so we do want to say that we have prayers for all the families involved, and we are very sorry for all the losses. And obviously, we would never like to see something like that happen. But so quick transition from that. I guess we can talk about the football. Notre Dame wins a funky one, really funky one. Some may call it fluky, some may call it funky, some may call it football. Wow, a lot of F's going around there. But 23-10, Georgia with their backup quarterback, and somehow not their backup offensive line, even though it looked like it the whole game. Georgia outgains Notre Dame 296-244. Riley Leonard throws for 90 yards. I tell you those two stats like 8 days ago, and what do you guess? I'm guessing Georgia beat them by like 20.
27-10 probably. That would be my guess.
Or 23-10, just the other way.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's funky, man. But I mean, they can just they rely on the run game and they get timely turnovers. It's something like I've never seen before because it's a lot of teams we talk about turnover luck, we talk about fluke stuff like luck rankings to where it's like this team's really lucky, so maybe it's time to fade them. And Notre Dame would be at the top of that list like every single week, but they just find a way to get those timely turnovers, and they sure did this week. I'll tell you what, I think it was Georgia's second drive, and they were flying down the field. And then ETN gets destroyed right at the handoff point. Ball goes flying 10 yards downfield. Next drive, show. I mean, everyone said his name already, so we might as well. Parker Jones, unfortunately, runs into the referee. So you can go.
Outing the kid.
So you can send him death threats. Yeah.
Yes.
He got
Yeah,
cut for sure. He went
Oh,
through.
100%. He's
he's
gone.
cooked. Yeah, you
I
guys
watched
see.
the video. Somebody posted his huddle highlights though on Twitter, and that boy was nasty in high school. That boy.
I
was
mean, he's
nasty.
on Georgia,
Dude, he
man.
looked. I know, but he didn't look like he was in shape or anything. He looked like the
He's a
Houston
backup
Ex-Bugger.
corner. I thought they said quarter, and I was like, okay, that makes sense. Like, look.
But he was number 39.
Yeah, I know, but he's a backup cornerback. Like, we're talking
Yeah.
cornerback.
We're talking
I'm like,
cracker back.
Crackerback
for
is
real.
right.
Bringing sexy
Yeah.
back with him.
I mean, that game, if you want to call it fluke, fine. I think it was a little bit of both. They had a little bit of timely turnovers on their side, and it was also they play fundamental football so well. They just do all the right things. Their defense gets on the quarterback. Their cornerbacks are pretty good. Not the crackerbacks or cornerbacks. They have a good defense. They don't excel in really any part of football except for doing the fundamentals 100% correctly. I mean, we're baseball guys. If you go out there and you practice, whether it's pitching, hitting, fielding, mostly, fielding, pitching, if you practice your technique 9 out of 10 times, you're going to get it right. Hitting's a different story, but 9 out of 10 times you practice fielding, you're going to get it right. You're going to field the ball, right? Notre Dame does everything right. It opens the opportunities for them to get turnovers. The only thing I will say, though, there are only 2 touchdowns. One was a kick return. One was a strip sack on the 8, and Riley Leonard ran it in right after. Those are the only 2 touchdowns. I mean, what do you say? Really? They couldn't get the passing. Yeah, well, you couldn't get the passing game going, 90 yards. Riley Leonard ran for, don't quote me, but 80, 82 yards himself.
I have it right here. Hold on. 80.
80. I mean, very good job. Your run game wasn't working, so he took it into his own hands. I know the running back got a little banged up, but is this Notre Dame team legit? I mean, you played Georgia, who, they have a backup quarterback, Gunnar Stockton. I thought he'd do better, but I think he triple pumped on every pass play. Like, not even a double pump. He was triple guessing himself every play. And like you said, their offensive line looked horrendous.
Yeah, their left tackle is awful.
If you watch that game, you would have said, holy shit, did every single one of their first stringers get hurt? I mean, we know wide receivers from Georgia are known to drop balls. Look at George Pickens last week. Horrendous. But, I mean, 6 targets, no catches. That's all I'm saying. 6 off the
had
hands.
a catch, but no yards.
Oh, sorry. But what do you say? Like, their entire team looked like second stringers, except for the defense. You take away those 2 touchdowns, this game's what? 12 to whatever, 12 to 13, 12, 13, 10, 12, 10. It's
10 to 9.
That game's a lot uglier than what it was. Realistically, it was 10 times uglier than what it was. They got timely, whatever you want to call it, lucky plays.
Yeah, I mean, you guys kind of covered most of it. A lot of what I want to say is going to be coming into my prediction for next week, so I'm going to keep it close to the vest until then. I will say, spoiler alert for everybody, the threesome did fail in this game for Georgia minus 1.5. I will say the under did hit for myself, though. Under 44.5. I was nervous about it being that low, but, I mean, obviously it wasn't much of a sweat, really. The only time I really got nervous was right before half when they scored that, when they fumble on the 9-yard line and everything else. I thought I was cooked. I'm like, if this is just shit's going to keep happening, then it is what it is. Brady, did you have a pick in this game?
Yeah, I know I'm not part of the show, but it was a foursome. I did have
Our first foursome.
Brutal.
Yeah,
It was Brady's fault.
Just honestly, kind of just reminded me of watching a Titans game. Just what the hell just happened, honestly, and that's just what it felt like for me.
That's pretty good. Just a couple more things on this game, just to touch on it. Yeah, I mean, Sam, you touched on it pretty good, but like that fumble. First of all, why are they passing with 30 seconds left in the half? There's no reason to. They weren't going to score. The offense wasn't moving the ball. I mean, Gunnar Stockton. I'll be honest. Me personally, I thought he played pretty well, especially for a backup quarterback making his first start in the Sugar Bowl in the quarterfinals of the playoff. I mean, I know he did double pump, and like that just comes with time. Like when you're making your first. Okay,
Triple
but
pump,
he's
dude.
making
It
his
was
first start, man. Like it's just
don't triple pump,
It's going through your reads.
Came out and he was double pumping.
bro. If he was double pumping, he would have been fine. Is what I'm saying. He was triple pumping. Watch the film. I watched that game 5 or 6 times.
Brother,
That
it's
was
his
the
first
ugliest college football game I've ever watched.
Oh, dude, you did not watch Illinois Penn State in 2019 then, because that was the ugliest game I've ever
Fighting
watched.
Illini, fighting farmers.
Yeah,
I don't give a
shout out
shit.
to
You're comparing 2 heifers, dude. Like,
You're telling me that this game was uglier than the Auburn Arkansas game, bro? I mean,
guess what? I didn't watch that shit ass game.
It's
It's Auburn. Why would I
No,
watch Auburn?
it's Gunnar Stockton probably played better than both quarterbacks in that game, unfortunately.
No.
But I had one other point that I wanted to make. Oh, also, I got to give a quick shout out to Nate, our guest picker last week. He did pick Notre Dame, so he did faded all 4 of us. So we had our first guest pick winner on the podcast last week. Shout out to Nate.
Maybe we'll have our second.
Yeah, Brady, you have a lot to live up to.
Yeah, and Ben's Mega Mortal Max parlay for the.
Yeah, that was not a
loss on the first leg.
Nate had nothing to live up to. Nate had no pressure at all because anything was better than whatever that was. But that's all the games from last round. So why don't we just jump right in? You fellas, we can just go in chronological order. So we're recording this on Wednesday. So that means Thursday night. Certain Nittany Lions are playing against Notre Dame. This game is in, where's this game? Miami, Orange Bowl.
Sorry. Orange Bowl, baby.
Oh, brain turned off. Can't remember. I don't know if, has Notre Dame ever played in the Orange Bowl? I don't know about that. But I know
I don't think so. I mean, if they have, they lost it because this is the first year where they've won any sort of BCS game, college football playoff game, New Year's Six bowl game.
Yeah, well, I mean, it kind of makes sense because it doesn't really make sense how they would get invited to these in the past because they're also conference affiliated. But last time Penn State was in the Orange Bowl was 2005, I'm pretty sure. 2005 against Florida. Oh, it was the 2005 season, so the 2006 Orange Bowl.
Yeah, they won it in 2006. Notre Dame actually, this is their 6th Orange Bowl. Their last one was in 1996. And fun fact, the last 2 times Penn State won a national championship. You know who they played in the semifinal? Notre Dame.
Semifinal?
What the hell are you talking about?
What are you talking about?
What do you mean the semifinal?
Well, not semifinal, but the 4-team playoff. They beat Notre Dame.
Brother, we never made the 14 playoff.
Okay, well, NBC Philadelphia is full of shit then. I'm reading it right now. NBC Philadelphia, get your facts straight. Because what I'm reading right now.
Article exactly? Can you please read the article exactly?
Yeah, I'm confuzzled.
Said Penn State's last 2 wins in a national championship came before beating Notre Dame twice.
That says nothing about semifinal.
I don't even know what that means.
That means that they just beat Notre Dame in the season at some point. They played them in the season.
NBC Philadelphia, you got to be more clear. Like, what are we doing?
No, I think that was pretty clear.
Horrendous.
That was pretty
horrendous.
That Chip Patterson.
Huge ball knower. This is a huge ball knower.
Chip Patterson wrote that. 100%. Got it. Or Kirby Smart, both terrorists. Chip Patterson and Kirby Smart.
Right. We're gonna move off of that term.
Plane 1, plane 2. That's all I'm saying.
No, okay. All right. Well, yeah. Well, there goes any sort of money we ever would have been able to make off this episode ever.
Sorry to spoil it, but DraftKings reached out. They're not revoking their interest.
Yeah. We actually had NIL offers, but there goes that. Okay. But yeah, Penn State, Notre Dame, Orange Bowl. Penn State last time they were in 2005 season. My parents were at the game, so I remember because I had to stay the night at Grandma's and watch the game, and I was very jealous. But that was a great game. Shout out to Michael Robinson for winning that game. Hopefully, another Penn State quarterback can pull it out. I mean, Drew playing pretty good football. Play calling's got to be a little bit. This is a very interesting game for me. The line's at what? I think it's back down to 1.5. It moved up to 2.5 for Notre Dame, back down to 1.5. I'm seeing over under at 46.5. I'm sure it's different on different books. I've seen 44.5. I've seen 45.5.
I'm staring at 44.5.
I
Okay.
got 45.5 on DraftKings.
Well, like I said, it's kind of all over the place right now. People don't really know what's going to happen in this game because people don't know if Jeremiah Love is healthy enough. I mean, he played last week, but I think he only had like 10 carries for like 30 yards or something like that. So they don't know what great running back, and their backup running backs have been pretty good in the playoff as well. But and then you got the big question really is Abdul Carter going to play, and what level is he going to be able to play at? I mean, obviously he's posting these Star Wars stuff, so like he's going to play. Let's be honest. It's just a matter of if Abdul Carter's going to play or if like number 11 for Penn State is going to go play. You know what I mean? We don't know what level he's going to get. I mean, obviously he's insanely talented, so even like half of him is something, but he's not going to. You have to hope that he's the X factor that you've been able to get out of. I mean, honestly, the line moving from 2.5 to 1.5 gives me a little bit of hope about him playing at a higher level. But it's a very interesting game because these two teams want to do the exact same thing. Let's be honest here. They're surrounded. They've built their rosters, their team, their game plans very similar. They want to run the ball. They want to be in third and short, and they want to get after your quarterback. So it's really going to be about one. Well, I think the biggest thing here, like we've talked about it already on this episode, is will Notre Dame be able to turn over Penn State? I think that's the big question here. Like if Drew Aller throws 2 or 3 interceptions, they're going to lose this game. They're going to. Like there's no way to. I don't see a world where they're going to win the game if Drew Aller throws 3 interceptions because Notre Dame's not going to put the ball in peril if that happens. They're just going to run the ball over and over again. Why would they ever try? If Drew Aller's playing C- football, why would they ever put the ball in danger? That's how they won games this year. You can't get behind on Notre Dame because they'll just choke you out and come after your quarterback like it's no tomorrow. I think that's the big thing. I mean, I'm doing all this talking. It sounds like I'm leading up to a pick. I don't have a pick in this game, obviously. Need Penn State to win. Love if Penn State won, but not that I'm not confident in the spread, but I'm not putting money where my heart is because that will just shatter myself into a million pieces. And then you guys only have 3 people on the pod next week if Brady is able to take my spot. If not, then you will have 2. I don't like what's going on here. I really, really don't like what's going on here. Sam, just rip the Band-Aid off and tell me you stupidly took Penn State like a fucking idiot.
I have a pick in this game, and I'm very, very confident. We talked about that spread going up to 2.5. That's when I jumped in. I got Penn State money line at plus 125. Look, I did it with the Eagles. I don't care. And I'm going to tell you why here. Watching the Boise State game, okay? It's Boise State, right? Pass to the outside. Little dump off. Is that Tyler Warren? No. That's Luke Reynolds, okay? 2 key players in this game against Notre Dame is going to be Luke Reynolds and Khalil Dinkins.
I love Luke Reynolds.
Those guys have not gotten a lot of touches. I was looking at some stats. We love some stats. I know Sean didn't have stats in this game, so I brought them. 34% variation between divvying the ball out to people. The entire year, it was Katron Allen, Nick Singleton, Tyler Warren, little bit of Clifford. Ugh. Okay.
Yep.
Wallace. Okay. Yeah. I don't really like Clifford. But Luke Reynolds, Khalil Dinkins, they kind of showed up against Boise State. I mean, Reynolds played a great game, and when you have 2 strong tight ends, one just not blocking the entire time, it opens up the field. I think the key to this game in Notre Dame is to be cute. Do those cute plays. At first, you got to punch them in the mouth and run the ball, but a team that's so fundamentally sound, they're going to know how to play against you. They know who you like to throw it to. They know where you like to run it. Okay? You have to be a little cute in this game. This is a big chance for James Franklin to actually beat a big team. Okay, I don't consider SMU and Boise State a big team. We got 2 nice warm-ups. I don't consider them big teams.
You guys told me that Boise State was a top 10 team all year.
I'm not saying anything.
I know.
It's not that he doesn't beat big teams. It's not that he doesn't beat big teams. It's that the saying is that he doesn't win the big games, and these were big games. I'm not saying. I never said anything.
I don't consider them big. Look, dude, it was SMU and Boise. We like Boise State all year.
Big games. You don't consider the college football playoff big games? Are you a moron?
Ask it another time, and then I'll answer it. Go one more time. Ask it.
Do you not think the college football playoff games are big games?
Okay, college football games, big games. Do you think Notre Dame against Indiana was a big game? No, it was ugly. It was
Yes,
shit. Indiana
it's a
sucked.
playoff.
Okay, I
Sam.
understand
Do
it's
you
a
think
big
Ohio
no.
State Oregon was not a big
Are you
game
gonna-
because it was a blowout?
No, that's the number one team
They're
versus
huge
what
games. They're
people think they're a
playoff
number one
games.
team. Okay, but we spent
God.
the entire year saying there's some teams that don't belong in the playoff. Okay,
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying anything about the team, Sam. I'm saying that they are big games because they are the college football playoff. I'm not saying anything about the teams. I'm saying that it was big games.
okay.
That's all I'm saying.
Then I'll take. Okay, I misspoke. I really don't think those are big teams.
I actually agree with.
I think they're warm up games. I don't think these teams really gave a threat. We played, like Sean said, we played a C+ game, and we still beat them 31-17. It wasn't even close. 31-14. Sorry.
I think this is just like a prime game because, like, obviously Penn State was favored by 10 or more in both those games, right?
Yes.
I think all these big games are like this is a prime example. Penn State's not favored, and it's just by a little. I think this is a perfect example of this is my opinion their first big game. They're big games, obviously from Penn State's track record and resume. I think this is one that can get them off that track.
100%. They're the underdog is the biggest statement. Brady put it nail in the head. I mean, SMU, what were we, 12.5 point favorite? 11.5? Boise State?
8.5. Jackass. It's 8.5.
Sorry,
you took
okay.
it was 8.5. Oh no, Luke did.
That was Luke.
I
That
did.
wasn't me.
It was 8.5, you jackass.
That's over a touchdown.
Oh, so you just
100%.
like I don't understand. You just keep changing and changing and changing and changing and changing.
What
and
do you mean changing? What do you mean
You
changing?
just, we were 12.5, so it's not a big game. I'm like, no, it's 8.5. Oh, it was over a touchdown. Oh, the dog of the week has to be plus 110, and I'm like, oh, it's plus 125.
All
It's
right,
like,
you're bringing up Luke. You're bringing up you and Luke taking a plus 105 as dog of the week. I don't want to hear it.
plus
There's
105.
a reason. Okay, listen. Those were not big games. Those games did not make James Franklin sweat. That's a game, like you said, they could play C+ Penn State football and still walk away winning by 17. Nobody will tell you that was a big game for James Franklin, and I believe that. That was not a big game for them. Boise State was not a big game. SMU was not a big game. Those are warm-up games to say, holy shit, we got to play either Georgia or Notre Dame. And what I'm saying with Notre Dame, their fundamentals, they're good at everything. Okay. Penn State excels defense, excels in the run game. Or recently they have been. But what I'm saying is, James Franklin, this is his big game. This is where he breaks the curse. That's what I believe. You're going to yell at me for an opinion, dude, that probably more than 70% of the nation shares. If you ask anybody, is that Boise State game a big game? Minus 11.5, minus 10.5, whatever it was? They say no. Anyways, I got Penn State money line.
The Fiesta Bowl's not a big game, folks, just so you know.
No, you're okay. If you gave me a shit team, you're like glazing over my point that I'm making. Those are not big games. Those were legitimately warm up games.
It's the playoff, though. Then what's the point of the playoff? Why are we giving teams warm up games? No, I understand what he's saying.
Are you sure?
I understand he needs to win the games. I understand. It's a big game.
Right. No, he needs to win the game, but when you're spread, when you're over a touchdown, when you're over 2 touchdowns, it doesn't matter. Those games are, if you lose this, you're fired. Like that's how they looked at Tennessee with Ohio State. If you lose this, you're cooked. You're done. That's how everybody looked at it. Texas and Clemson.
Tennessee wasn't a big game.
Are you saying Texas and Clemson was a big game?
Yes,
That was a huge game. That was a monster game.
That's not a big Clemson snuck in being the 18, 19 seed? We talked about it 2 weeks ago. They snuck in being the 19 or 20 seed.
That was arguably the best game of the first round.
It was still a big game. I don't understand. Like, this is a ranked team versus a ranked team. It's not like they put in like East Stroudsburg into the playoff and they said, all right, here's your warm-up game. Like Boise State was a top 10 team.
Okay.
SMU was a top 10 team.
I love Boise State. I still do. I love Boise State. But when you put them against a Penn State, an SEC team, anybody could have predicted that outcome. I didn't bet on them because the stakes weren't high enough. Now the stakes are high enough. I believe in Penn State.
All right. Luke?
Yeah, I'm not gonna get as animated. Feel like I have some good statements behind my pick. I'm gonna go Penn State plus 1.5. I feel like a lot of the early money came in on Notre Dame. A lot of the late money's coming in on Penn State a little bit here. The handful of my notes that I have here, these are two very, 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 very similar teams. both have elite run games, both have a really great defense, and both have similar quarterbacks talent wise. I would give the edge over to Aller. I'm over. They very similar quarterback talent wise.
Are you smoking crack? Are you
I would-
smoking crack?
I would disagree with that. You're probably smoking crystal meth, not even crack. If
and
Aller
so
went into the draft this year, he would be first round. He'd be the best
I
quarterback
think
on the
that
table.
Aller is playing better football, but I think that they both are very similar talent wise. They don't have the same talents, but they're both similar talent wise. My next point. I think the two X factors for Penn State in this game. So being that they both are two similar teams, I think that the most important weapon and the one weapon that Notre Dame doesn't have that Penn State have is Tyler Warren, having that elite tight end position. And I think another big key is going to be the wide receivers for Penn State having to make plays this game. Xavier Watts is going to cause a lot of problems for that offense. Aller has to trust to them, and he's going to have to early on that they can go and get open. A majority of people are going to think that Notre Dame is going to take this game based on the early money based off their road. But if you look at last game, Notre Dame had 90 passing yards versus Georgia, and that Notre Dame Georgia game, Notre Dame had two plays. They had the fumble recovery on a 9-yard line and a kick return touchdown. That is two very different games. I think that Penn State got the script on how to beat them. Just Georgia lacked the execution to do it. I think Penn State, like I said, Warren's going to have to show up to play, and Aller and the wide receivers, more importantly than Aller showing up to play, the wide receivers are going to have to get open and not force Aller to make plays. If he's just able to get some time in the pocket and those receivers are able to get some space against Xavier Watts and the likes on their secondary, then Penn State should handle this game.
I agree with I really agree with your wide receiver point. I think something that I thought about similar to that is I don't think they need to be open the whole game. I think they just need to be open at the start of the game just to open up the
Right.
secondary a little bit. I don't think it needs to be like, oh, we need a wide receiver to go for 110. It's just like we need a wide receiver or just one wide receiver to show like, hey, I can get open. You do have to worry about me, just so that opens up the running backs and the tight ends a
Right.
little bit.
Right.
But
Which, like I said, and another point that I too is that both these team defenses are built kind of the same. Their plan is get a 10 to 14 point lead and then just choke you to death until you just stop trying. So I think if one of these teams gets, it's hard to say that because it's a playoff game. You never know what's going to happen. But based off these two teams, if somebody gets really a double digit lead, even after the second half, it could be over. It might not feel like it in the moment, but by the end of the game, it might feel like it'd be over.
no, I do agree with that. Brady, you have anything?
Yeah. One of the ways I like to place my bets is what coach do I have the most trust in? It's helped me
Oh,
more
geez.
times than not. Hawk, you're going to laugh. I trust Sean Payton more than Zach Taylor, and that proved me wrong that game. And honestly, I feel like these coaches are just both very similar. You can honestly flip a coin. Obviously, Franklin has more experience, and also, like we were saying before, me and Sam obviously agreed with. I think this is a game that can put Franklin over the top. Personally, this is a game where not everyone thinks Penn State. Obviously, Vegas will think they're going to win. This is a game where if Penn State wins, I could really prove a lot of people wrong personally. So I don't have a pick, but since I'm a guest picker, I'm going to roll Penn State. They are even money right now on FanDuel, so I'm going to roll Penn State even.
Love it.
Brady, I love to hear that. I will not be complaining the foursome, so guys, don't worry. Don't you worry.
This could be bad, but it may be good because the threesome doesn't include everybody from the OG pod, so maybe it won't apply.
Hey, it worked last time. Arizona State,
Right.
shout out to them. All right, well, I guess we got a little animated over that game, so we can move on. Unless
It's
Sam
good.
wants to
That's
say
what
anything else.
this is about.
No, like we said, it's like the Spider-Man meme. They're just looking at each other like this. They're 9-9-1 all time, deadlocked. It's going to be a battle for the ages. I think it's going to be a slugfest. It's just who can get to that 10-point lead first. Because if you force Riley Leonard to throw, probably bad things are going to happen. You force Aller to throw in a tough situation with Xavier Watts on the other side of the ball, going to be tough.
I just can't believe that Weaver said that Aller and Leonard are as talented as each other. That is absolutely
We can that
blasphemous.
can be a different discussion. That's great.
That is blasphemous. I mean, like honestly, if I'm betting based off what quarterback I trust more, I know which one I trust more. It's not even close.
It's not crazy to say that.
It is crazy to say that.
No, it's not.
All right, well, we'll move on. We got the next game. Only 2 games this week, obviously, semifinals. And then we got the Buzzsaw versus the Longhorns. Ohio State comes in, red hot, hottest team in the country, playing like the best team in the country, just throttled the number 1 team in the country at the Rose Bowl. Now they take on Texas. Which bowl game is this? I totally
It's the
forget.
Cotton Bowl.
Thank
Bowl
you.
in Dallas.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Cotton Bowl. So Texas, playing in Texas. That's interesting. I didn't even think about that. Line is at, I've seen 6, I've seen 5.5. I think it opened at like 3.5, and it's just
I think it's
steamrolled
still
up.
5.5. I think it's
Five
still
and a half.
5.5. Over under 53.5.
Yeah. I saw someone before last week. They had the look ahead lines. It was Texas minus 1.5. So I guess that's what happens when you beat the number one team in the country by 34 in the first half. Yeah, Luke, why don't you start us on this game? I want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I'm taking Ohio State minus 5.5. What I think the big key here is that Ohio State's play calling has clearly been a lot different since Michigan. The only question is the pressure back? Because it seems like after losing, all that pressure was built up. Oh, this Ohio State team is so good. This Ohio State team is so good. They're a monster. Who's going to stop them? That pressure got today, like it typically does. They dropped the ball to Michigan. Now it's kind of play with our nuts out. There's not really that much pressure. It's like everybody's kind of already tossed them to the wayside. Like you lost to Michigan, yada yada yada. Play calling totally changed against Tennessee, airing it out a lot more. Obviously, Trayvon Henderson and Quinshon Judkins are monsters. Like you can hand the ball whenever. And we talked about Jeremiah Smith the whole game, but at the same time, like Judkins and Trayvon Henderson ran the ball down their throats too. So the question is Day going to crawl back into that shell where the play calling's not as dynamic as he historically does when he's under this type of pressure? The same pressure that's going to be on him that was in Michigan, because now it's like, well, Ohio State's a monster. Who's going to beat them? Oh my God, because they're so amazing and they're so good. What are they going to do? And my only thing that scares me is that the only way that I see Texas winning this game is for Ewers to be able to hit Golden or anybody for 25 to 30 yards downfield multiple times during the game. You're not running the ball is kind of out of the question with OSU's insane defensive line. And, it's kind of just going to be hopefully Jeremiah Smith doesn't get too open, and hopefully we somehow just somebody has an aneurysm and forgets that he's open downfield or something, because there's nobody's gonna stop him. And we were talking about Smith all we want, but Edbuka's been had been just as great. I mean, Edbuka's arguably had a better season. Just Jeremiah Smith just showed out in the Rose Bowl and has been all over the place. Don't look at me that crazy. They have both just been insane players this year. And so, I mean, that's the only thing that makes me scared about Texas, is that if Ewers can somehow air it out 5-6 plus times 30 yards downfield, but is that going to happen? Probably not. The only thing that I'm worried about is Ohio State shooting themselves in the foot rather than actually Texas coming out and outperforming them.
Let's shoot it over to Brady. Let's see what he's got.
I'm going Ohio State minus 5.5 as well. I think this could be a very tricky game, however, because I think Ohio State could come out flat after that high they came out with against Oregon, obviously up 31-0, middle of the second quarter. I think they will come out a little flat against Texas, but at the end of the day, I trust Ohio State's playmakers against Texas. I think the game being in Dallas will play in Texas' favor to keep it close for a while, be around 3 to 7 points, middle of the third. But I think at the end of the day, Ohio State's just going to end up pulling away. I just think they have too much star power to compete, and obviously, Quinn Ewers, he's got a bunch of question marks after this season. I wonder if that's also playing in his mind right now as well.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree, but I took the crazy play. I took Texas +6 here. I'm looking at 6 on DraftKings. I think Texas is going to resort back to Texas football. This is going to be, like we said about Penn State or Notre Dame, when they get a lead, they're going to choke them. I think Texas is going to come out and try and choke Ohio State right from the gate. They still have a high caliber defense, and we could argue that Oregon's defense wasn't actually legit. I mean, Penn State, a team that's notorious for not scoring in the first half, they scored 21 points in the first half against Oregon. That's why that game was even remotely close in the Big Ten championship. If Penn State doesn't score those points in the first half, that game's long gone. But Penn State hung in there, and they're not a first half team by any means. We even see that against Boise State. A tiny bit against SMU. If you don't get those 2 pick sixes, well, great defensive plays, but that game's a lot closer than it should be. I took Texas +6. I mean, Ewers at the end of the game, I really liked what I saw. I don't think it's a Ewers problem. I think it's a play calling problem. I mean, they let Ewers throw the ball that first drive. They marched down the field and scored. And then in the middle of the game, okay, let's be cute, run. I think they had 4 3-and-outs in between 6 drives. It was incredible. I think it's a play calling problem, and I don't think they're going to be conservative against Ohio State. Now everybody's looking at Ohio State in the limelight like, holy shit, this is the team to beat. And Ohio State was fueled off of that underdog. They think we suck. Oh, Michigan, this, that, yada, yada, yada. I get they have star players, but this is the biggest spot, and you have Ryan Day as your coach. I mean, Ryan Day, can he win the big games? I guess we'll find out, but I'm going on Texas's side here. I'm getting 6 points with Texas, almost a touchdown. I feel really confident. I think Ewers is going to be a little bit crafty behind the line this week. So give me Texas. Bring me home. I don't care if you win or lose. Just don't lose by more than 5.
Yeah, Sam, I'm going to be riding with you on this one, actually. I think this is like the most buy low, sell high spot of all time. I mean, you got a team that looks like the greatest team on turf. And then you got a team that barely snuck by the Big 12 champion, and no one respected the Big 12 all year. And it's in, like we said, in Dallas, so Texas is going to have the crowd advantage. And it might not be that crazy just because Ohio State does travel extremely well, but we got the travel advantage as well. Yeah, like I said, buy low, sell high. Like we talked about it earlier. Sam mentioned it a second ago. Ohio State, the motivation was, oh, they said we couldn't play because of Michigan, and so they come out and beat the crap out of Tennessee. It's because they were the most motivated team in the country. And then the next week they're extra motivated because it's like, oh, this is the team we lost to. Like, we have a chance to avenge our loss. What's the motivation angle this week? To win the national championship? I hate to break it to you, Texas has that same motivational angle. So I don't think there's a motivation advantage. I think that was a big thing that Ohio State was kind of riding on. I do think Ohio State's more talented. I don't think it's crazy, but I think they're definitely playing better. So like that's a thing. But like I said earlier, the look ahead line for this game was Texas -1.5. It's all the way up at 6. I haven't taken it yet, I will say, because I think like bets are no one wants to bet on Texas in this game. I think that there's a chance that this goes up more, maybe 6.5, maybe even 7. If it gets to 7, I might have to just like nuke this, to be honest. But I'm going to sit and wait just because I think the public's going to keep going on Ohio State, on Ohio State, on Ohio State. And so I hope that it can keep going up. But I will take it at 6 if I don't see any more movement. I think Ewers is going to be able to play well enough. I think he even has some motivation because, you know, he left Ohio State. And as Luke said, maybe there's something about him going back. Who knows? We don't know. Like that is a little out of the realm, but maybe it's like a put on for your city so that he can come back. I don't know. But yeah, they have talented receivers. I'm so done talking about the Texas run game because every time I say, and they might be able to run the ball, they run for 20 yards and I look like an idiot. So I'm just going to leave that out of it. But they have a talented secondary. I think that's a huge thing that people are forgetting. Like Jade Barron won the Thorpe Award, I'm pretty sure. Or at least he was a finalist for it. And I understand he's a little bit undersized. I'm not saying you leave him out on an island with Jeremiah Smith. But you have Makuba over the top, who I really like as a draft prospect, actually. But he had the huge interception to win the game last week. He's a rangy free safety. I think he can help over the top rather than Oregon, where it felt like a lot of the time they had one guy over the top and he just stood in the middle of the field while Jeremiah Smith ran down the sideline for a touchdown. I think that Texas might be more disciplined on defense. You have to hope so. I think they have a more talented secondary. I think the thing with Oregon is that they had athletic linebackers and a good D line, but they just couldn't get to the quarterback in time because there were wide receivers running open on the backside. So yeah, give me Texas. Just buy low, sell high. Really is what I'm falling back on over and over again. I know, I don't want to trust Ryan Day, but I don't really want to trust Steve Sarkisian either, because it feels like this is a game that he also likes to lose. But I think it's maybe a better two evils. I don't know. Just give me. It just feels like too many points. Maybe a little bit of an overreaction to a beatdown of a team where you're the most motivated team in the country. That's all I got. Anyone else? Any more comments before we move on?
I mean, yeah, I'll give you a quick one. Like Penn State, we saw them play against Oregon. Oregon didn't really create havoc. Penn State played against Ohio State. They created havoc on defense, led Will Howard out of the pocket. He's a pocket passer. He lives in the pocket. Like Luke said, you're giving the guy the keys to a Lambo, and he's only used to driving an F-150. Okay? Oregon didn't really create havoc. And I know that's a good offensive line Ohio State has, but if Texas, a high-caliber defense, an SEC defense, can create havoc, I don't even think this game hits – I was leaning the under as well. I don't think this game hits more than 45 points. I think it's going to be a slugfest. It's going to be a ground game. I think it might be like 22-19, 19-16. It's going to be an ugly-ass game.
19 is a crazy number.
Well, it's just look at the Penn State-Ohio State game. Penn State created havoc on defense with a pretty decent defense and a star player in Abdul Carter who got held every other play. But Texas's entire defense is elite. They're a great defense. I really don't think they're going to let Will Howard do what he wants with them. I don't believe that.
Yeah. I think we touched on most of it there. I do want to touch on one more thing because I saw some people talking about this online, and I honestly I don't even know if I have a real answer for this. But I've seen people trying to rank the 4 defenses left in the playoff. I go back and back and forth. I can give you guys my rankings, or if anyone else wants to go first.
I mean, I'll rip through it. Or
Yeah,
sounds, you know, mind. I don't hear what you got to say.
okay. I mean, to be honest, personally, I think it's all close. I'm gonna be honest here. Like we're pulling at hairs here. It's not like we're talking about like a top 5 defense versus a bottom 5 defense. But like me personally, I think Ohio State probably has the best defense in the country right now. I mean, Caleb Downs is playing like the superstar we know, and then their D line is on fire right now. It's insane. Um, and then I'd probably go Penn State. I'm a little biased. I mean, you have to get healthy Carter for them to be second. Without healthy Carter, they're probably fourth, just because he's such a difference maker. And fourth is nothing to scoff at. Like I think that they would be like this close to breaking back into the top 5, but top 4, sorry, or top 3. Jesus Christ. But I think Carter's just such a difference maker because he's probably the best defensive player left in the playoff. I mean, it's him or Caleb Downs. Let's be honest. I don't think that's too
I
crazy of
put
a
Jack
take.
Sawyer up there. I'd put Jack Sawyer up there. I'd put Jack Sawyer low key over Caleb Downs.
No, I completely
Yes.
disagree with that. But I'll agree to disagree with you. I'll agree to disagree with you there. I don't think Jack Sawyer does
Watching
anything
him
all
in
that crazy. I
person,
think he's just a really
watching
smart
him in
player.
person was life changing. Watching
He's
him
just
in
a wrecking
person was
ball,
low key
bro.
a life changing like thing to see. That boy is different.
All right. Well, I'll agree to disagree. I'm not a huge fan of Jack Sawyer, but
Life changing. Watching Caleb Downs play was
It was
life
fun,
changing.
man. Watching him play Tennessee and the way that he was running around on that field was crazy. I hadn't seen anything like that in a long time. Like it seemed like everywhere that anybody was with the ball, Jack Sawyer was right there with them. Like it was, I don't know. It was wild to see.
okay. Well, I don't think
Yeah.
Jack Sawyer is anywhere near Abdul Carter, so I guess
No,
that
I'm not. I think it's. I
yeah,
think
no,
it's one.
yeah.
I think it's one, and then it's like I think it's Abdul Carter, then it's Jack Sawyer, then it's Caleb Downs.
I would say 1, 2, 2, 3.
I would say maybe Colin Simmons over Jack Sawyer, to be honest, but that might be a little bit of a hot take. I don't know. I don't think me personally. I've never seen Jack Sawyer as like a game wrecker. I see him as like a really smart football player. Don't get me wrong, like he's really good, but I don't think he's like a game wrecker, super athletic freak gonna fly all over the field. But we that's a different conversation for a different day. We can agree to disagree on that one. And then I'd say I would put Notre Dame 3 right below Penn State, honestly, and I put Texas 4. Um, but like I said, number 4 is nothing to scoff. It's so hard, man. Like you could put anyone at 1, and I would be like, okay, there's probably an argument to be made there. I don't know if you guys have anything different than I do.
I mean, a little different. I am biased, but I go a little less biased. I would probably go Ohio State, Texas, Penn State, Notre Dame fourth, with 3 and 4 being very, very close. So you could even say 1, 2, 3, 3. I think Texas just has an elite, more of an elite defense. All their guys seem to do the right thing all the time, except for that Arizona State game where a broken play, broken coverage. Like, what the hell's going on with Scatterboo throwing the ball? Because I know half those dudes crashed when they saw the ball in his hands. But I would say Texas is number 2. Ohio State is just a wrecking ball right now on defense. And even when they lose those close games, you don't see the score get out of hand.
Yeah, I mean, I got Ohio State 1, Penn State 2. I have Texas at 3, and then I got Notre Dame at 4. I think Texas has just got a little bit more size on defense and has a little bit better ability to stop bigger plays. I think that Notre Dame didn't really. Georgia never really got anything going. It felt like on offense, so didn't necessarily feel like that was Notre Dame's. That was Notre Dame's doing. It felt like it was just more Georgia's inability to get the ball moving downfield. Brady, do you have a ranking for the defenses left in the playoff?
Pretty similar to Hawks. I'm just flipping 2 and 3. I'm putting Notre Dame 2.
Yeah, so it's very similar. Like I said, I'm sure Brady feels the same way. Like 2 and I feel like Penn State and Notre Dame. We talked about how they're so similar as a team. I think the defenses follow suit. I think they're built very similar. safeties flying all over the field. They're going to rush the passer. They're going to get after you. They're going to try and stuff the run and then rush your passer. So it's hard. I think I agree with Brady. Like if Carter doesn't play, I agree with Brady. But I just think he's such a difference maker that Notre Dame doesn't really have. But like we've talked about, I think that they're probably much more disciplined than Penn State. I think that's also a big thing that we don't talk about probably as much as we should. Even though, crazy thing, Notre Dame had twice as many penalties as Georgia in that game, which I would never have guessed in a million years. I checked earlier; it was like 10-5, which blows my mind. I don't understand how that game was 23-10, but it like kick return and all that jazz. Anything else? I mean, we can wrap this up. We've been talking for a while. I said it was going to be a shorter episode, and we just kind of been yapping. Luke, why don't you hit me with the Twitter at?
Yeah, follow the Twitter, not so hot takes 2_, and then subscribe to the YouTube, not so hot takes. If you're looking for the official name on there, it's not so hot takes with 2 S's. Brady, do you want to shout out your socials, or are you going to keep your socials on the
we're
low?
good.
Keep them on the low.
I'm out here tomorrow. Lock of the week, Sunday, Bucks -3.
Oh my God, that's the mortal lock. We saved those, Brady.
Yeah, well, he's not going to be with me to record
no, that's his. That's his. Yeah.
Okay, Bucks -3. I thought he was here
Bucks
tomorrow.
-3.
A little bit of sprinkling of NFL for the fellas.
If you're ever
I like that a
questioning,
lot.
just look up "In the Air Tonight" remix with Baker Mayfield. That hype video. Again.
Thank you, Brady.
Sir. Sorry your tie didn't make the playoff, but I'm also.
Fuck Alabama. till I die.
I don't know, Jim.
I don't know, Jim. Yeah, but
Our worst
couple
year is your best year.
it's brutal. Yeah, well, you don't have Saban anymore, so yeah, don't know if you could say that.
Hot take: Auburn's going to be ranked like 4 all year next year. Hot take.
I would love that.
Ain't gonna happen.
Auburn's beating Alabama next year.
Okay, well that could happen.
I mean, it's at Auburn, so anything happens.
It's not
there.
impossible.
Anything can happen there.
All right. Well, we'll let you get going. A couple things before we go. First of all, like Luke said, tune into the YouTube. We might have something coming special this week. We're working on something. If you were wondering where the trivia segment was, you might have to tune into the YouTube. Maybe turn on the notifications. Who knows? Do some fun stuff. Do some fun jazz in there. But we'll have some fun stuff coming. Thank you for listening. Obviously, we want you to gamble responsibly. This isn't a game, obviously. As much fun as it is, it's not a game as well. It is real life money, unless you're playing on stake.
Or if you're Brady and get a $50 FanDuel gift card for Christmas.
Well,
That's
then
crazy.
you can then you can mortal max it on a plus 15,000. But
Bucks -3.
yeah, exactly.
Yo.
But
In the words of Luke Weaver, this is real life.
yeah,
This
exactly.
is real life now.
Exactly. But yeah, coming down to it, semifinals and then finals, and then season's over. So we want to thank you guys again for joining us on this ride. We've had fun. It's obviously our first year doing this. We're still figuring some things out, but I think we're having a good time. We hope you enjoy listening. And if you have any suggestions, leave a comment. Why not? We read through them. There hasn't been too many to read through, so we could say we've read all of them so far. So yeah, leave a comment.
Shout out, Maddie.
Reach out to us on Twitter. Follow the Twitter, like Luke said. Yeah. Fellas, any parting words?
This is real life.
Yeah, final words of the podcast. We are. Let's go.
Penn State, baby.